So we created our folder. We put the project folder here, pointed map to CodeIgniter notes. I put the htaccess zip there, unzipped it, and there's my htaccess file, just a hidden file. And we are doing this, right? Ajax notes. So, right, let's start. CodeIgniter notes, new Sublime, notes, Sublime, notes. And there's a project right there which is loading, and let's pull up some things here. Config file, auto load. We need to make sure that we have the. Oh, we don't need our. Yeah, we do. URL there, and session there. Are we also doing database on this thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
The notes are
Database there. You go to database. We have to set username to root, password to root, database to node schema. Let's create the schema real quick. Create a schema, notes, schema. Oh, it's kind of small there, huh? Well, trust me, I typed in notes schema there. Note schema. Set that as a default. Let's create a table. And what do we need here? It's just the notes. Cool.
Content.
ID, auto incrementing, title, comment
Then
or description.
Content, or whatever
Content.
you wanna call it.
Content it is. Okay. Anything else? Yep. We need
created
That's it, right? We don't need anything else. No users or anything.
Put the date time.
Ah, thank you.
Content could be bigger too. Be like text.
Yeah.
Oops. Cool. That's it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a database. Let's go here and look at our page. So I refresh it. It's working. If something wasn't working, it would break right here. But it's working because we have the right schema, the right user, password, and we're done with the database tab. We're done with the auto load tab. We can go to the config tab and get rid of this index.php so we don't see it on our URL.
Just kidding.
Brought to you by Pandora.
Pandora just randomly starts. That's good.
So you got Ajax notes yet?
Yeah, we're already done.
Oh.
This is the end of the demo. Yeah. Cool.
Is that the
So
one you're doing is notes?
yes,
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what
I guess just remind if anyone else wants to come in, but otherwise I'm just gonna.
This is the-
Perfect. Good
Everyone
enough.
else is either not there yet or
No problem.
past there. So
All right. Cool. So
still here though.
so you're all at the sweet spot. Yeah. Are you done already?
They're all counting on the video, I suppose.
I suppose.
Tell them it's not being recorded.
Oh, good call. Oh, by the way, the screen recorder broke, so you better get in there.
It might if it crashes. I can't really help that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, I'm
an
serious.
hour plus long, right? So.
Maybe database with just everything in it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
It's kind of a small
absolutely.
project.
So yeah, it's a small project. So Andrew had a good point. We don't need a mains control essentially. We're all going to do stuff on the notes. So we're going to go to we're going to call it controller call notes, right? It's the notes, right? Yeah, this whole thing's called notes, right? Yeah. So notes index the same thing as notes. We want to, when we go to the notes index method, index in general in RESTful routes gives us always all the notes. So we will just go to notes index, same thing as just notes. I'm just going to be a little more specific there. And I'll try to remember that you guys can see that, but remind me if you don't see that on the screen. Cool, so that's good. So of course we refresh here, page not found. Why? Because we're trying to go to a controller called notes and that doesn't exist. So we're going to rename the controller here notes, plural, because it's a controller. Notes, plural on the class name. And refresh this page, and now we're good because this controller just got renamed to notes. So now it's going here to the index method, and it's loading our welcome message. Our welcome message is going to be called the index. Can you do that? I think
Yeah,
you
you
can.
can do that.
I actually haven't done that before. I've always like named them something different than index.
As long as you save it as PHP.
Sure, perfect. Let's call it index. Let's go refresh. Everything's working. Great. And let's get rid of 90% of all this.
Quick question, real quick.
Mhm.
The stuff on top, the base path, whatever, should that be included on every view?
This?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
What about like a partial? Does that need to be
Ooh, I
re-included or no?
don't recall. I don't know about a partial.
That needs to be
I don't
there
think you need it on
every
a partial.
view.
I
Every
don't,
view.
I don't
so.
think so. I've done like models and stuff without it. I don't know if you need that for it. I've done it without that on the views
Well,
too.
it's so that if somebody tries to access the file directly without going through like your Raven controller, it's supposed to stop them, kick them out.
I see.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if I need.
I don't think you need a partial.
Okay.
Because it's on that page. Ooh, but somebody could just directly go to the
The
partial.
partial, right?
Then I guess you do need it.
Okay.
We might have to look into that because I don't know. Okay, let's save this. So we're going to keep it as simple as possible so we can reduce time on this part. But we will have a notes, and that's going to have here a division of a note. And this is going to have the title of note and content of note. There it is, and we should just kind of continuously do those. So I'm going to put here just a style tag and just give a little bit of styling for the class note. Div.note. Set the width to 250, height to 250. 250. Okay, cool. There's our note. Let's put some padding there. There we are. Okay, cool. So then if we have multiple of these notes, we should see them next to each other. Yep, and then they go down as they go. Cool. Care about that anymore. That's working. And that's it, right? And before the notes are shown, we want to create a new note, right? So we have a form here. Input. Oh, look at that. Working now. The name of this input is title. And another input. Name of this input is content. Is that what we called it?
Yeah. So we were a little unsure about the directions in the assignment.
Mhm.
It sounded like we're supposed to create an empty note with just the title, and then when you
Oh,
click,
yes.
is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we don't need this. This is going to be a submit button. It'll have no name to it. And this form, it will be a post method type of form, and it's going to, action is going to be the URL. We're going to use this. So we're going to use as much RESTful as possible routes here, so we can kind of get used to that. So /notes. A post of /notes should create a note. So we're going to use that as our creation of notes.
What does that go to your index? Which is your display.
Yeah, it will, because it doesn't know what a post or a get request difference. So /notes /create. Yeah.
I think that's the example.
Is that what they use?
Yeah,
That's the use notes creating.
Oh, cool. That makes sense. There it is. Submit goes nowhere because it doesn't know the notes create method index. Should be the doesn't know the path yet. So let's go to the routes. We're requesting a notes create route. So on, whoa, what is that? Oh, right. /notes /create. We want to go to the notes create method. That's where we actually take an action. So we're going to create it. I guess we don't need that route because it's pretty defined, right? Okay, but does it make sense though?
Yeah.
And we don't need it because it's going to literally try to go to that method, controller method. So let's go to our nodes controller. just so you guys know. Create method. And this is supposed to create us something, but let's just make sure we get here. So we want to see the post data here. Let's see it. Any questions so far? Cool. There it is. We're getting the data from it. It's going to the place we want it to go. This is working. We don't need to ever check that again. Let's just comment that out for now. And so we want to now call on a model method, which we have not loaded the model, but I'm going to auto load the model. And the model is going to be called, if you guys look at the very bottom of this page, we can auto load models. So we can call on the notes model, which is the name of our table. Excuse me, the note model will be the name of the model we're about to generate right now. So in the models here, I'm going to create a new file and save it as the note.php. And you could use one of the examples on our website, but I remember the pattern, I think. CI model. We don't need any of that stuff. Ooh, we do need some of that, don't we? So here's the create method.
You wouldn't have the index in the model.
That's true. We probably kind of call it something more specific, huh? Like get all or something.
Yeah.
You need a closing curly bracket for your model.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I have it down there. It's hard to see it, but I got it.
Oh, I see.
Cool. So it just gave us an error because, let's see, we loaded the model called note. This is the model called note. I don't know if we need this anymore, but anyways, we'll leave it there. Yeah, and then now we're going to call on that model. So this model name called note, and then one of the methods in the note. I have create an index. I'm going to call on the create method. Just call on the create method. We don't need that. Here it is. What is that? Oh yeah, that's our page. So let's look at this dying model. Let's go here, refresh. Dying model. So do you guys follow that? I went a little quick. Okay, cool. We don't need a route because it's directly going to the notes create method, and this is calling the note model create method in the note model create method.
Should the note model be capitalized just for
Here?
proper naming convention? The file name
The
and then when you
file
load it
name?
as well.
I don't recall the file name. If it is, I think you're right. What else?
And then when you're in the controller calling it,
When you're calling this.
Yeah, this.
Ah, right. So you yeah. So sure, let's do that. Why not? Okay, cool. So this is going from the note controller to the note model. The note model should now be doing the query here. So we're going to use an actual query here. Query is equal to select all from notes. Ooh, that's create. Sorry. That should go somewhere over there. Select all from, nope, we need to say insert, right? But let's back up for a second. The controller has all the input data here. So we take all the post data from the controller and pass it into the parameter of the model's create method. So the model now is going to expect data from here, such as the note data. Does that make sense? Cool. So in the query here, we're going to say insert into notes the keys of, we just need a title actually, right?
Right. Yes.
Values of question mark. And actually we need a title and created at, updated at. Any questions so far? Now method for the created at, updated at. And that should do, we're going to print the query here. Let's also do the values. So values is the note. If it's only one value, we don't need to put that in an array. So we can use the note to be part of it. So we can just do here this db query and pass in the query first, and second we can pass in either the single one variable or the array of variables if there's more than one question mark. Does that make sense? Cool. Question on that?
the question mark.
Even isn't note an array still? Don't you have to call on the index of the note?
Right. So whoops. Say that again?
Oh, so that note would be the title, right? The $sign note. that goes
Oh,
in there,
yes.
but isn't it an array? So
Yes,
you
you're right. It's
still
an
have-
associative array, right?
Yeah, so you still have to
Yes.
call whatever you named it.
Yes.
Call whatever you named it.
Either we pass in just the title on this
Yeah.
side, or we do what you just said.
Yeah.
We specify it. Yeah. Good call on that. I would have had errors on that. Good call on that. I would have had errors on that. So this whole thing from the controller side should execute and then result, bring back a result, right? And so we're going to var dump the result here in the controller, and die method in controller. Successful. So vControl is going to call the node create method. It's going to pass into it the input data specifically for the title only, which is the only thing we're getting from the post anyways. So the node model is going to retrieve that title from the parameter because it's a function, right? Passes the function, and we just called it node, but we should probably call it a title because it makes more sense. Good call on that. And this is going to be called title. My point is that this could be an array of 5 items, and we can pass in the array here or create it here to realign which one's first, second, third. Or if title is only one value, such as in this case being just a title, we can just run this DB query, the query itself and the title itself next. And this is to avoid SQL injection right here. Let's do that, and then the result of that will be returned to that controller. So let's save
So
this.
you have to do. Oh, you have to return. Isn't that going to return a MySQL object, not like a row or anything like that?
No, that's going to return true or false.
It's going to return true or false because we're inserting something to it. We're not doing a retrieval.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it
But
should work.
We should return like the ID or something, right?
Yeah, at some point I think we will need the ID, right? You're right. Let's take a look to see if our database updated. I'll go right back to what you just said. Look at the tables, look at the note, and there's the first note we added. Let's go back, refresh the page, second note's title here, submit. It says it's true, and there it is, true. Successful, awesome. Go back, refresh the page. Let's go back to our code. So let's cross that bridge when we get there, actually, if you don't mind. So we did the create, and because we kind of, what else do we need besides create?
Update.
We need update and
Delete.
delete. So what do we need from the delete? We know that on the delete we're going to get the ID, correct, of the item. So why not just create the statement right here? Right. We're going to say delete from notes where ID is equal to the ID that you're going to pass me. Here's the query and here's the ID. Return me the result. Right. And this is the not create. This is the delete function. What else? We need update also.
Yeah.
So why not make that as well? This is kind of going against what I usually say, but it is going against what I usually say. So let me not do it. But we have the delete there. We'll leave it for a second. Let's go back here and look at our code. We got one to be entered, but we can't physically see it on our page. So let's actually pull all the data. So every time I go to this page from the very beginning, I grab all the notes and I see them. Should have done that first, so I apologize. So we'll mess with this right here. So the controller index, which is loading our main page, should first grab all the notes from the database. So we're going to call it on the model, which is called the note model, right? And on a method called get all notes. I think we could use the index method to get all notes, can't we? Isn't that like?
I've never.
Can we try it?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, it will definitely. I think it'll work, but right, because all I'm doing here is I'm going on the notes model and I'm calling it the
What
index
do you
method.
call it?
Notes model index method. Select all from notes.
It just feels like bad naming.
You think so?
I don't know. Like if I'm looking at the controller and I'm saying index, what does index do?
Index in well, okay, yeah. So later on, you learn that index is the method used for RESTful routes that will always retrieve you all of whatever that thing is.
Whatever that model is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so
And-
then that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So that's done for the controller. I haven't seen it on the model, but I can only imagine it's the same thing. So,
I feel like it should be like get all.
Yeah.
get all.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do get all. Also, index looks weird. Nope, never mind. I thought it was green or blue for a second. So get all. So again, the controller has to call on the get all method of our model called note. Our model called note has a get all method that's going to it's going to create a query, execute the query, and this is where we need to do result array is a chained function on the get all query because excuse me, on the query of getting all the notes, because we need to. It brings back an object, and we want to make sure that it gives us an array of the records, not objects of each record. So we do that next to it. So return. So that should be returned here, and that should be set to the return value, which is notes. And we should just var dump here and check notes. I find myself doing a lot more shortcuts than I used to on demos, so I'll slow down. So when we execute this method that gets the model, first thing we need to do is put a die statement here and say in get all model, right? So if we refresh, in get all model, cool. After the get all model, after we know we're on this method, we need to take a look and see if this result was true or false. Oops. So we're going to take this, we're going to var dump result. Refresh, and in get all, and this is the result that we got from that. So we are getting all the data. The reason for me going and checking to see if I got here, and then checking to see if this actually was a result of something, is because if it doesn't work, why should I even go any further, right? Why should I go 4 steps ahead if I know this doesn't work? Also, we could just var dump right. We don't need the result there. We could just do this. Same thing. It will give us the same value. We're var dumping. So as opposed to var dumping the result of this query, we're going to return the result of this query back to the controller that executed this method. So if we go to a controller, here is a controller. We executed the method here. It's going to take the results of it and put in the notes here. Let's var dump the notes here and put a die here in controller. It's not going to happen. And let's refresh. And now we are in controller. So we know that we passed the model returned back to the controller page, it got to this point, it reprinted all the data, and now we're in the controller. So since we know we're in the controller, and we know that notes is a numerical array that has 2 associative arrays inside of it, we can pass notes in here. So I'm going to create an array here, the name of notes, and its value is going to be the notes variable that carries all of the notes. Correct? Let's refresh this page, and we are back here. So let's do the query here, or excuse me, let's do the embedded PHP code to get all our notes lined up. I'm going to go back here in our page. We know that this block here should be the one that keeps getting repeated. So let me bring it a little higher up for us. I'm going to copy it and just mess with it down here. So I'm going to open PHP tags here. Close PHP tags. Actually, I need to close PHP tags again here because we need to start a for each loop. Thank you. Notes. Well, let's back up for a second. Let's make sure that the notes variable did get here as we expected. Var dump notes. Refresh, and there it is. Cool. So we know that notes is working. Now we can do a for each loop. For each notes as note, and I'll do the other way that you guys found out about, which is super cool. So I guess there's another alternate way of doing this embedded PHP here that Andrew and Tony found out, right? Andrew and Tony copied, right? no, and I'm about to copy now, so it's all good. Oh, cool. We're getting 3 of this.
Yeah.
Because we know there's 3, or 2 anyways, because we know there's 2 of them there. That's great. Also, what is note? We don't know. Let's not guess. Let's var dump note to see what's inside of note. Note has an associative array. Note has another associative array. So note is an associative array. So note of ID, I should get the ID. Let's try it. Note of the ID key should give me the IDs. There it is. 1, 2. Makes sense? So we should never guess on this stuff and guess on why it's not working. We should just var dump as we go. Essentially, is my point here. So here's here's the content. Let's do a print here, but we're not going to print here the ID. We're going to print here the title. Refresh, and there's the title. Great. Let's erase the old stuff. We don't need it anymore.
Is that the other way of embedding PHP you're talking about?
It is not. I'll do that right now.
Yeah.
So snapshot. Take a snapshot. This is like how it used to be, and then remind me, guys. Just colon here, and then
and for each semicolon.
a semicolon.
And then the PHP lines can just become 1 line now. Just look a little cleaner.
Why couldn't you just do that?
Yeah, why couldn't you do that
Curly
with the curly
braces?
braces?
What difference?
You can, absolutely can.
Yeah, what difference does it make?
Nothing. But I mean, it's just a different. it's just a different
But
way of doing it.
It's
It's
if
more
you're doing
right.
like a
Yeah,
if, else if else block, right? Then you
Yeah.
have to open and close PHP tags so many times with the curly braces.
Yeah.
You can do this and it cleans it up.
Yeah.
Same thing for switch.
Yeah, it's just a different way of doing it, and it's definitely
Yeah,
very much like Python. It's like Python-y kind of way of doing it.
But I'm saying you still have to open and close the PHP
Yes.
tags every time.
yeah. No, you don't have to.
You don't have to?
No, no,
I'm not talking to you. No.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'm not talking to you. Yeah, we could also do this.
Yeah.
So it's essentially the same thing, but it's just a different way of doing it. So it's pretty cool. Take it or leave it. Cool. So either or works. We're back to the same one. So we created this note. It has the title. That's good. We have it. So if we add another one, third note, submit. Oh, right. It's when we added a note in the controller, we still did a die statement. After we're done adding a note from the controller, what do we want to do next?
So redirect that.
Let's redirect back to root, which is going to the index method, and the index method is going to grab all the data again from the database and load them all in our page. So let's refresh here.
Semicolon.
Thank you. There it is, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Do you wonder how many times I did this? All right, cool. So we have the notes. We can add notes. We can't edit the note yet. What should we do next? Should we do the delete probably next? So our page here, we should have a button that deletes. So let's create here an element, an A tag, href, that's called delete as the link. The root is going to, the route is going to be /notes/delete. That's what I'm going to expect. And so under the notes controller, delete method, it should get to this point, but let's just double check. Die statement here, refresh. These are all my delete buttons. Click on one, it gets here. So I know it's going to the right controller. I never have to worry about that again. Okay, let's delete that. And now let's execute a method. Well, let's back up for a second.
Let's pass it an ID.
Right, how do we identify which button are we going to delete? All we're passing it is a route with no unique identifier. So what is a unique identifier we could add here?
No ID.
Node ID, perfect. So let's just add the ID here, which is it?
No ID. It's in your
Oh,
notes.
that's right, right here. LSI node brackets ID. Same.
To echo. Because you're not in PHP. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, right, thank you. So we're going to use the PHP tags to print out the node ID there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well done, guys. Let's go back here, refresh, click on that. At least we're getting the URL as we expect. And that URL is going specifically directly to the note, the note controller, the notes controller, excuse me, the delete method. And because that is part of the URL, the third /out, it's automatically going to be the parameter. This is kind of like shortcut. Ideally, what that would look like is, this will look kind of redundant, but just to just show you, it'd be notes, delete, /num, meaning that that extra part of the URL that you're passing to me, I expect it to be a number. And then it'd be notes, delete, and then number 1 for being the first parameter. And then / if you want another number, it'd be number 2, etc. So this right here, we could kind of skip it because it's doing this automatically. It just kind of follows the pattern. If I pass a URL of notes delete 5, it will go to the notes controller, delete method, and pass a 5 into the parameter. So here's the delete ID. Let's make sure that that's coming up. var dump ID, die in controller, delete ID. Refresh, and there it is. Go back, click on the first one, ID 1, fifth one, ID, well, I guess it's not the fifth one because there's 2 3s. Seventh one, there it is. So that's working. So if we're getting the ID from here, let's execute the note delete method, and let's pass into it the ID. So I used an href, right? I used a URL. I didn't use a form. Have you guys done this yet? The URL, okay, cool. If you have any questions, let me know, because this is different, using a URL as opposed to a form. We could have just as easily done a form, and this could have just as easily been this input post ID, and the form would have had a name of ID passed through it. But we don't have to. So this is going to execute the delete method on the note model. Let's go to the model, note model, delete method. Here's the parameter we're passing into it, because we're passing into it as a function. The parameter is passed into the function as an argument right here. And we're running a query, delete all from notes where ID is equal to question mark, the ID we pass, return DB query. Here's the query itself, and here's the ID that we got from the parameter up there. So let's save this. This will return and get to this, and this should just redirect back to our page, and that should be deleted. So let's refresh and delete. Delete, 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 delete. And it's working. So delete is working. Add is working. Delete, add, and we need to just do update. So let's go back to our page here for notes. And this part right here, even though we say content note, this should be replaced with the content of the note. So I'm going to put here content, because even though it's going to be blank, I still want my content to be there. It's printing blank right now because all of them in the database are empty for content. But if I were to hard code some content on both of these, just to see them, it's not there. So let's take a look. What am I doing here? Content. Maybe I didn't, did I? Oh, I didn't?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did.
Um,
What did I not do there? Apply, close. Okay, maybe I just went too quick or something. You can go back and critique afterwards. There it is. So they're there. Now we're printing them, even though they were nothing before. Cool. But the content should be modified anytime we want, right? So what are your guys' thoughts of how to modify the content?
I started a way where when they click on it, so in jQuery it'll take the content, the text of that p tag, and then kind of remove it and then replace it with a form.
That's not a bad idea. I'm gonna go a little more simple this time, for the purposes of this demo, and create a form here. Whoop, let's back up here a second. We're gonna create a form here, and the form will have input data on it. Text name here is content. Value here is a content that we're printing. And actually, maybe this is not input, this is text area.
yeah, that's how I did it.
Okay. Yeah, text area probably better. And text area doesn't have value, right?
We just
It goes in between. Whoops. So bear with me for a moment. Doesn't need name, actually. Just no content. Type. Does it even need a type? Doesn't need type. So, ooh, that's nice. Something's wrong there. Thank you. Cool. So that's what text area is. Essentially, it's an input box, but it's called text area, and the content of it goes between the text area element, as opposed to being one element that has a value inside of it. That's it. But this is printing a bunch of forms. They're all going to be post forms, and the value is for all of them. Oh, excuse me. The action. Thank you. For all of them is going to be /notes/update/ the ID of this note that I want to update. Right?
Yes.
So
I had a question about that. So
Yeah,
since you're going to be posting content anyways, should you be passing the ID through the URL or as a hidden input? Because aren't you essentially kind of mixing like get and post?
I am.
Is that okay to do?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. Is this a little confusing? Okay,
I just didn't know.
yeah, no, it's cool. Let's keep it simple. We're going to put here in a hidden input, text type hidden. The name is going to be ID, and the value is going to be the ID. Make sense? We could do either or, but we'll keep it simple. It's all coming through the form. So the idea is that both of these now have a form. If I right click on this thing and inspect element, this thing is a form. Ooh, wow, that's huge in size there. So this thing here is a form. On the other note, there's another form there, and they're going to have ID of 5, and this form here is going to have an ID of 6. Do you guys see that? So they're unique. Cool. So there's update. We don't need that anymore. And let's just make a button for this, even though later we can make it automated. Submit type button, and that's it. So this button here is only there to update content, right? So it's like I could change this, click submit, and it updates. So let's change the value at least of that button. Value is called update. There it is. So the update is going to go to notes update, notes controller, update method doesn't exist. So I'm going to create one. There's the update method. Update. Let's put a die statement here. In controller update method. Yep, I misspelled it, but that's okay. Missing argument notes update. Oh yeah. Let's forget about that. We don't need that first of all, but I just want to see it get to it. There it is. In controller update. Cool. So we know we're getting to this point. We don't have to worry about that ever again. Once we get the data from update, it's going to be in our post data. So we should var dump this input post and see it. There it is. We're getting the ID and we're getting the content. This is assuming we don't want to update the title. And let's assume we don't want to update the title. I don't think we have to, right?
No, no.
Great. The next one is, right? So we know that it's working. Here's the information of the date of a post. We don't need the var dump anymore. We're going to call in the note model, right? The method called update. So note model, we're going to create a method called update. And we're going to pass into that update method this input post. All of the data that I got from the form, I want to pass it into this method of update. That's going to be here on update, and it's going to pass here. So this will be called the note. We know the note is not one item. We know the note is an associative array. So here we'll say update. Thanks. Update notes. Where is it? Where statement?
Set.
That's right. Set the values, then where, right?
Yeah.
Set. Let's see. Content to equal to question mark, and that's it, right? That's all we're setting.
Where ID.
Yep. ID is equal to question mark. We could hard code it, but we don't want to hard code it. So here,
Just for we don't have to do it here, but for good practice, because it is an update, you should also update the updated app, right?
oh yes, we should do that actually. No, it's okay. Let's do that. Good call. Updated at is also going to be set to
Now.
Now,
yeah, we can hard code that. What's wrong with that?
yeah.
Cool. So far so good. Any questions? We're doing the update query here. So we're going to run the query. And here's the thing. I'm passing note here. If I don't check note, I'm making the assumption that the first associative part of the array for note is going to be the content, and the second one is going to be the ID. So let's see if that's true. Let's var dump note here, die here, refresh. Let's back up. Update. The first part is the ID, the second part is the content. So I can either go to the form and swap them, but essentially we just want to make sure that the first one is the first one for here, and the second one is the second question mark. So we can do a couple different things. I'm just going to do it kind of like simply. I'm going to set a values variable to equal to a numerical array, and the first part of the numerical array is going to be the note of the content, and the second part of this numerical array would be the note of the ID. so that now when we pass values into the second parameter, it's going to be in order.
You would never, even if you knew it was in the correct order, you would never use the post variable there, right?
That's a great point, yeah, because how do you have control of that, right?
Yeah, because they could mess with the HTML and put in another hidden input or something.
I never thought about that, but that makes a total sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. You're very much right about that. So we should always specify the order, so that even if they change their order, here we're picking it as we need it, as we want it, right? Cool. So that should return back to this line being completed. If this line to be completed, we could do extra things here. We could also say like equals to result, and if the result was false, meaning that it never updated, redirect back with some kind of error. But we're not going to go to that kind of complexity right now, or not complexity, but just that deep into this one. We're going to update it, and then we're going to redirect back the page. So we're going to update, and then redirect back the page. Update, and redirect back the page. Something interesting about update, do you really have to, well, I guess you have to here. We'll talk about it later. Scratch what I just said. I'll edit the video. Not really. All right. So let's go back here and look at this. We can add notes. We can delete notes. We can update notes. We can refresh and everything works. Cool. This is now where you start using Ajax. This is exactly where we actually do the Ajax call. So this is when the fun begins. So if we go to our index, as opposed to having these forms post and redirect, we'll do all of those things through the through jQuery. Thank you. So first, let's include the script. It's been a while, but we'll add the script in the assets file this time. The source is going to be jQuery.js. And we're going to go to our assets folder here. Where is it?
It doesn't come with it.
Really?
You have to add it.
I think I could have sworn I saw it last time. Oh, okay. Where are we going to add it? Are we going to add it right here? Probably. Right click, new folder. So you guys don't have to do this part. It is good practice to do it, but you could just link the CDN for jQuery. So all you'd have to do here is put the jQuery's URL, and it would work perfect. I'm going to add the assets folder, and it's been a while, so
So we looked it up. Yeah, they said it has to be root level with the application.
okay. Delete the assets here. So the root level is
Right. But
notes,
same
so right
level,
click.
yeah.
I'm going to add here assets, and inside of assets we're going to add the file. So let's find jQuery. Sure. Copy. I'm just kind of doing a fast way of just taking the file and putting it here. I'm creating a new file in that folder called jQuery.js, and then I'm pasting the jQuery text into it. So let's see if that works.
Source has to be /assets/js.
Got it. Thank you. That's right. That makes sense because it's starting from root directory, right? /assets/ jQuery.js. Let's refresh. Notice how this thing here is black now before it was red. This is an easy way to identify if it loaded correctly. This is stuff that it loaded. The other way to do it with the script is kind of cool too, but I mean that's really the best way to do it is from the bottom there. So it loaded. We have jQuery here. So now we're going to use jQuery to do these posts. So first off, let's do the form for adding a post. Right? Yeah. So let's use jQuery.post. And the first part of the, oh, that's pretty nice. It's giving you kind of like the structure.
Is it document ready, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do document ready first. So document.ready. So how do we want to do the post? I know last time we did URL. We hard coded them. But do we want to hard code these?
We could do partial.
Yeah. So this button on submit, we're going to give it an ID of new note, let's say. And let's just do a document.on click of the element called whoa. new note. We could do the form shortcut, but this is.
But if you're always posting one form to the same URL, does it need to be dynamic? If
One
you're gonna
form.
use that one for both forms, then it's worth.
No,
doing
we
the same
use
way.
that for just this.
Right. So then I'm asking, shouldn't you just hardcode the URL if it's always gonna go to the same place if the URL never changes?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we're just doing the event handler right now.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but you're doing this so that you can grab the URL directly from the form, right? Or
I'm
you-
doing this so that when you click on this
I
button,
see.
it so we could say click or we could say submit of that form. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I thought you were trying to use one function to submit both forms.
No, I'll probably go one at a time for simplicity. But this is just the
Gotcha,
event
gotcha.
handler, right?
Yeah.
So this is there so that if I click on a new note, it doesn't actually add the note.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So now let's do the post of, this is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Hard coding the notes URL here. Sure, let's do that. This is not the best way to do it, okay? So if you guys are like, well, I've seen better on the internet or I've seen better someone else do, yes, there's ways to do this more efficiently, but let's just do it the basic way so you can understand it, and then I'd be happy to show you the other ways to go about this. So first parameter is the URL, just like we just talked about right there, right? We're hard coding it there because we're saying here when this particular button has been clicked, essentially when this form is to be submitted, first execute this code, and then, unless I do return false, submit the form. But because I have returned false, it will see that I'm clicking on this, it will execute this block of code, and because it sees return false, it stops. It never actually submits this form. That's the purpose of return false, so that this form never actually submits. And one of the behaviors you have to identify here is that the form will only submit after this JavaScript code is completed. And because we have a return false, that form never gets posted. So we never do a redirect to a page. Without this return false, we would be posting twice. We would be posting with Ajax, and we would be posting with the regular redirect.
because the JavaScript script waits to be loaded, if you could access that form before your whole document is finished, couldn't you submit that way?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you could kind of sneak in a submit before your
Yeah. Absolutely. Actually, we don't even need this at all. We could
yeah,
just.
so wouldn't you take the method post and the action out
Sure.
of the form so that way it doesn't?
Do it accidentally.
Yeah, you just. take
Oh,
all
yeah,
of it
that's
out.
true. We could absolutely.
That way, just in case that the form loads before your document is done, they can't submit to the method post and action that was created. It will work.
Great point. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah, great point. Well, let's add that a little bit,
Okay.
just so we can leave it here for visualize. So we're going to post to this URL. We're going to post a certain kind of data from this form. The way to do this is we can call on this particular form. So let's back up for a second. I kind of did this a little messy. Let's give the form itself an identifier. Let's give this ID to the form. So we're going to say this form has an ID of new note. And let's say that if we submit, the action of submit occurs on the form with an ID of new note, meaning that this tries to get submitted, execute this block of code, and because I say return false, never actually form submit. Which means that when we call on this, the variable this in JavaScript, console log, when we call on this is an object in JavaScript. I think we've talked about this before. So if I refresh this page and look at my console log and I click on submit, this is referring to this particular form that it was submitted, that is being submitted from, right? This is what this is this entire block right there. So if this is a form, I can actually call on parts of this, such as I can use jQuery, which jQuery takes this, shows us the same thing in a different format. Look at this. There's jQuery's version of this, more outlined content. And now we can run methods on this. This dot serialize is going to grab all of the input key value pairs and pretty much put them in a single string. Thus the word, hence the word serialize. So if I do here submit, That's what serialize does to the form. It takes all the key value pairs, in this case only one key value pair, and puts it in a string. And this allows this to be sent through Ajax. Because yeah, right. So,
Or 11% by the battery.
oh, okay. There's no power plug. It's okay. I'll try to go fast or something. Cool. So that's what serialize is. So what we can do is for the second parameter, which is supposed to be the content that we're posting, we can use this serialize. The third one is a callback function. This is what's going to be returned back, such as response. And then the fourth, if you guys remember, is just the type of response we're going to get back. Is it JSON response? Is it HTML response? Whatever we want. There's that. There's that. And since this is referring to this entire form, I can also call on attributes. I can call the method attribute and get the value of post. I can call in the ID attribute and get the value of new node. I can call in the attribute, excuse me, I can call the action attribute and get the value of the route that we're going to redirect to. So another way of doing this here would be again the same thing, this, which is referring to the particular form that was just submitted, dot attribute of the particular attribute I want to grab, which is action, and that will retrieve me back this string right here. Does that make sense? Cool. Let's console log here, responded, and then the response. RESPONC. Let's refresh, type in, submit, and nothing. There's no response coming back, right? If you guys noticed, when we click submit, we have the create method execute, and failed to reload response. So I don't think it even says, oh, if you guys do see the bar here, but this bar here is just 27 seconds waiting. There's no response yet. We've never responded back to this request. So if I do this a couple times, all of these post requests, the timers just keep going longer and longer as I wait because there's no response coming back to those calls. So when we say we're turning on Ajax, or people have said that before, I guess, they're simply saying we are no longer posting from the form. The post itself is happening from Ajax here, from jQuery's function called post, and the response back just needs to let us know that it was successful. So if this was posting to notes create, we are no longer redirecting back. We just need to respond back to the client for the response, for the request. So they requested to create, they gave us the data. We created something actually. The last two that I just clicked on were created, and I'll just prove it real quick. Let's go back here, refresh the page, numbers, submit. Let's go to our, see, there it is. It creates it, but our database, our server is never responding to them. It's trying to redirect to an Ajax call, which it cannot redirect. So what we need to do here is an echo JSON encode some kind of response such as like true. This will trigger back the callback function to respond and say that we got a response. In this case, we got a response of true. So if I refresh this page and I type something in and hit submit, we get a response. And the response we got back is true. Essentially, the response is whatever we typed in as echo JSON encode. And we have to do JSON encode because it's JavaScript, right? It's Ajax call. So we need to do the same thing for delete and update. So let's go back here. So this one is for So here's a question. If this particular post can call on every individual form, could we just call on all the forms, have them all go to where they wanted to go with all the data they need, and then all get responded?
Yes.
Yeah, so like a trick, I guess you could say, or not a trick really, the way you should do it is identify that I can just say, you know what, submit of any form, post it to each particular URL that's unique for that form, grab all the data that needs to be serialized, pass it over through serialized so it gets there the same way, and then when you're done, respond back. Let me know about the response. So what can we identify here is we can say that, you know what, everything that just redirects, we can just respond back and say, good job. All of these. Let's go back here, refresh, update, click update, response true, refresh the page, and it's still there. So all of these now that I'm updating on, they're successfully updating to the server without ever redirecting the page. And the way we know that is because this here is only requesting the update method as a post request, but it's never redirecting back to our page. It's never doing this, right? So update is just updating those in the moment. So let's go back to our code, and let's go back to our index page. I went a little fast there, but again, we're submitting all the forms, and each one is going to its own URL. Each one is being serialized, all of its data and being sent to the server. And as long as our controller methods are responding with some echo JSON data, it responds successfully. So let's look at this again. Let's delete some things. Oh, the delete works differently now, huh? What is that? Do we have a die statement on delete or something?
Yeah, delete
It's
is
a
a
link,
link.
it's not a form.
So
Oh, right. Oh, right. So maybe we should make it that a form for just the purpose of this. Let's go to the delete method.
they
Or-
wanted you to make it a form in the,
They did, huh?
in the thing anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is what they were kind of getting at.
Yeah, absolutely. We create a form here. The method is post. The action is going to be notes delete and the ID. We can still do the pass a parameter through here. Should we do it? No, we'll do it the general way. We have 7% battery life. Let's do this.
You're dropping fast.
Whoops. Name is going to be ID. Value is going to be the value of the ID. This particular is going to be hidden. This is going to be delete method. URL. This is going to be input. Submit. Value. Delete. I'm going to get rid of that. That is going to go to the notes delete method. It's no longer through here. It's this input post, excuse me, of the ID parameter, right? And that should still work. Let's refresh here. Delete, refresh. It's working. Delete is working. Oh, clever. Thank you, sir.
Should reach your now.
Intermission. So we can update, we can submit, but we don't actually see them live. I click here submit multiple times and I don't see them until I refresh the page, right? Because they're Ajax calls. They're just doing their thing and then they're coming back. So what do we need to do about that?
In your Ajax response, take the actions.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start with the add with a new note. When we submit a new note, we want the new note to be submitted, and then when it's done submitting that new note, once its callback is executed, meaning that successfully submitted a new note, we need to append the new note in our current document, right? So first off, how do we identify that what we just did was either a create or a delete that identifies on the callback function is going to be creating something or deleting something? How can you identify that right here? Because the only response from all of those things is true, right?
Mhm.
What are some thoughts?
You should reform the JSON responses to
Yeah.
include.
Yeah, these responses that come back as true can be whatever your heart desires, right? They could be an associative array that comes back as an object. So if we create a form with a post of title, why don't we respond back with an associative array, which is going to become an object in JavaScript, which is going to be type, and we're going to give the type a create perhaps, and we can also pass in title, and the value of the title will be whatever value this is. So let's see what that might look like. Let's refresh the page. Let's try to create something. Let's look at the console, submit, and here's the response now. We responded back with JSON on the create, the type of create, so we know what kind it is, and a title. that we're passing, that we just added to the database, right? What else do we need besides these two?
ID.
ID. We also need to know which one it is, right? So let's just add that one as well, comma, ID. Now we haven't grabbed the ID yet. When we did this create method in our note model create, we never retrieved back the ID that was created when this was running in the database. So there's a method you can execute here, which is actually not here, right? It's afterwards. This db insert ID. Is that what it is? This, essentially what it does is it grabs the last ID that was added in the database. So since we just added something, this will grab that ID and return it. So as opposed to returning the true false of the query, we return the number of the ID that we just added in the database. So this would give us back like 5 or 8 or whatever it is. So this whole thing will result to the response, the return value of ID. So we can take this ID.
I have a question about how insert ID works.
Yes.
How long is that there for? And if it's holding something that you already inserted and you have an insertion that fails, is it still holding the last ID that was inserted, or?
I've never seen it fail, so I don't know how it would work like that. And as far as time, I don't either. The one thing that I've thought about, people have kind of brought up, is what if two people insert two things at the same time?
Yeah.
And you grab the wrong ID.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Kind of. Same
You would probably structure it a little differently then. In that case, I would think. But even when I looked at PHP and I looked into details about that particular thing, because I googled a lot of it, everybody said that there is ways you could do the query so that never occurs, like that, and supposedly that when you call on those two methods, they call so fast that you shouldn't have that issue, is what they say.
Okay.
Unless you're like Google or something, I guess.
So ideally, you would check in your model. When you're in your model, you would kind of have an if statement that makes sure that your insertion was true.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah, that makes sense.
returns the
Yeah, sure,
security.
sure. Absolutely. Where's that at? Where's the create? Here. So we can say here result is equal to that, and we can say if the result was true, grab the ID, and if the ID was successful, return the ID. Otherwise,
Return false.
yeah. And then if you find a return false from the controller, then return a different type, such as failed, or create status failed, stuff like that.
Okay.
But for now, we're grabbing that ID as soon as we're creating it. So now we just need to grab this data and submit it via what? So let's see. Here's the response. The response is the object. We can say if response dot what part of it dot type is equal to create.
Double equals.
What was that?
Double equals.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Ooh, rookie mistake.
Response.
What are you guys talking about? Just kidding. Just kidding. Thank you. Let's console log here. Create. Let's refresh. Type something in, and there's create. Great. Let's do the same thing. Else if the response type is delete. Delete. Oh yeah, let's do the delete one. I'm kind of jumping here. So if this is successful, for the delete, we need the same kind of echo, but the type is delete this time, and we just need the ID. By the way, I'm making this up, right? Like as far as the fact that I'm saying type, delete, ID, and the ID is just my own let me just do it. That makes sense, right? Somebody could say type, or somebody could say status, or somebody could say method, or these names are up to you as far as what you want to do them, as long as they kind of make sense when you read them. I don't know of any standard. I'm sure there is, but I don't know of any standard to use here. So again, then the delete, I just want the type to a note to identify it's a delete method, and I want the ID to be the ID that I just passed to this to delete. And again, just like you said, Nathan, we would have a bunch of if checks to see if this was successful, and if not, check the status of false or true. So we probably include another status one here.
What I've seen a lot is on JSON encode. They'll have an associative array, and they'll the first key will be like a success or like result code to let you know if it was good or not, and then the body key will contain all of this information.
That makes sense. So it's a quick check as opposed to playing that. Yeah. Cool. So on the delete, we're going to grab the method and the ID. So if we go back to our page, if the response type is delete, back here, refresh, delete, delete, delete. All right, something's going on here. Else if response type is delete. JSON encode type delete. What's wrong with that?
The second quote on delete on that. Yeah, the previous file we just had.
Where?
Controller and type equals delete. Oh no, nothing. Ignore.
This means that there's no.
And it's not deleting either, right? So is it in the model?
Oh, look at that. There's the error. PHP error. Undefined variable ID. What? Oh, wow. Because I'm passing the variable ID, not this input post of ID. Let's refresh, delete, and that works. There we go. ID 20. So if this is deleting ID 20 and this is creating one, we did create, we did delete. We're not even going to touch update, and I'll explain in a second why. When we create one, what do we need to do here?
Append.
Yep, that's it. So we're going to call on whatever element we were dealing with. It's more likely we'll have a div here that is going to be called, yeah, like notes, let's say, that ends down here. And so we can append to that div. So this div of div.notes.append into it the full HTML up from here to here. That block right there. And also it's most likely that we would create a partial here and we would load the partial, but for simplicity, let's append this. Wow. Again, I highly recommend that we would we would do this with a not this way. We would do it with a partial, but let's not add the partial thing now into the mix.
So you can append embedded PHP. Like, yeah, okay.
No, he'll have to grab it from the response.
Yeah.
Yeah, this seems
None
so
of that's
silly.
going to be PHP. It's going to all be JavaScript.
It's all going to be JavaScript. Yeah, exactly. So this is all going to be.
Sweet Jesus.
I know. This is so ridiculous, but we're gonna go with it because we're committed now. I'm sorry.
If you wrap the whole thing in your double quotes, you can use slashes at the end of each line. It'll concatenate properly. You don't have to break it up with places like that.
Perfect.
You do have to go to the PHP, obviously.
But we could do this, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, but at the end of each line, yeah, you need that slash on every line.
That's not bad. That's a lot better than what I had a second ago. Right?
Yep.
Does everybody like this or what? I think this is a way better way to do it. I mean, partials would be the way to do this, but let's roll with this now. So you don't need \n, you just need backslash?
Yeah, just need the slashes in every line.
Because it escapes the...
Yeah, you're going to have to fix the
Sure.
the double quote issue everywhere.
Sure.
I want to know the shortcut that you just did right there.
Oh, you find the thing and you just Command D.
Control D for us.
Control D.
Yeah.
And
A lot
keep
faster.
going. Every control D
All the way.
grabs the next one that
Yep.
matches it.
All the way until
Oh,
it gets...
God.
How much time you spent on this? Just kidding.
Oh.
The last div, the slap.
We're at?
No, that's the end.
That was the end, so we don't need a close one of those. But we do need to replace these things here, which are PHP embedded code, with whatever it is from response dot, in this case, ID for the ID one there. And same thing for this one. Response ID for that one. Same thing for this. This is going to be the content. Did we return back content?
You have a title of
No.
there.
Oh, we don't have content.
Yeah, it's just going to be
It could be a new one. Yeah.
H3
Where's
title.
H3 title? This one we do need for sure.
Don't forget your semicolon at the end of the pen too.
Yay. Okay, we gotta see it in real time. It's not the same if you don't see it in real time. Cool, it's working. Let's see if the delete works on him. Well, it's working after we refresh. So let's finish the delete method, and then it's it. Again, this looks so bad. This would definitely be a partial page that would load just this one page and retrieve, and evaluate the data of the variables. So this whole thing would be replaced with just like, I think it's .load, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? It's a .load method. So, and that partial is on your, I believe, your assets folder. Or it could be in your views, and it's loaded by HTML, and
Oh, it
your
would be
your
views
PHP.
partials.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And your PHP is just rendering that as HTML, so the response back could be HTML response.
So it
Or-
would just be .load.
.load if it was JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
If it
lot
was
of
JavaScript.
people, what I've seen too, is they'll have this form, but empty, and then they'll have it hidden in the HTML, and then grab it as a template and just kind of fill it in.
Gotcha.
That's what, that's
Yeah.
kinda what goes on.
Yeah.
So let's do the last one of the delete. It's gonna be quick. So the delete, we want to first find out what this currently is for the delete method. And there's a problem, because if I right click and look at the delete, if I look at this on the click on delete, it gives me object, and that object is something crazy. Actually, it's the Ajax object, right? So what I need to identify is which particular form did you just click on for me to do the delete. But this inside of the callback function is referring to the Ajax callback function. So we need to know what this is before this function executed. So the trick here,
This equals that.
yeah, we create a variable called that is equal to this. Sarkis, remember this? We used to talk about that, and I'm like, yeah, foreshadowing, but yeah. So that here is whatever it was before I clicked on the button, which is the form itself, right? But that is actually the form of the actual button, right? So from that, I need to look at the parent. Do we need parentheses on parent?
Yes.
And that gives me, let's see if I can get a highlight on it so we can see it. Oh, that gives me the entire division dot note. And since we know we're deleting it, because if I refresh the page it goes away, we can say dot, I think it's dot delete or dot remove. Every language got its own thing. So now it deletes the one we're looking at. So if I refresh the page, it stays the same. If I add something and update, I really need to take no action when I update, because if I, it's there. Now what am I going to update visually, right? Nothing. And if I need to add something, it adds it, deletes it, adds it, updates it, refresh, delete, update.
I just want to share one thing.
Yeah, please.
Your form's not always going to be one child from your parent that you want to delete, right? So there's going to be like 5 levels in. So in that case, instead of calling parent like 5 times, you can call dot closest and then an identifier of what you want to delete, and it'll
Yeah,
just go
let's
right
do
to
that.
it.
Perfect. So dot closest goes up, right?
Yeah, it goes up until it finds that identifier.
Like so. And then we want to find, like, let's say, the dot note
Right.
class, right? Or more specifically, div.note. So it goes up the DOM tree until it finds it, and then removes that. And just for the heck of it, since we're on the subject, how do you do it going the other way? Dot find is going down the DOM tree. So just to visualize it, this is great call there, Anthony. If we look at the elements, and we look at this form, and the form has, excuse me, let's look at the elements. There's the notes. Let's forget about that one. This one note has 2 forms, this form and that form. If I clicked on the division note and I wanted to get to, let's say, the paragraph, we could say dot find a p tag, and it will just go down only within this division up until here and find the p tag, right? Or the closest p tag. And then Andrew's saying that if you're currently from this particular form, or maybe a couple more divisions inside of this form, you can say dot closest and look for any particular division or class division or ID. Well, not ID, it wouldn't be ID, it would be all classes here. because they're replicated. So that's excellent. Yeah, that's a good point. Mine's very simple, but you're right. Some people may have like 3-4 divisions within each other. Yeah. So since I know that, what does it actually works? Oh yeah, because I'm console logging it, but it's also working, right? Let's get rid of that. Let's refactor the code a little bit. Oh well, I can't really refactor that part, but yeah. But the point being is that we're using one Ajax post that is handling one form, 2 forms, 3 unique forms. So, and again, I still feel really bad about this because this should be a partial. Should we do that?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. So, okay, let's do it. So as opposed to doing all this stuff,
But don't you have to have a different post because you're expecting back HTML fragment now instead of a JSON fragment? Or response
yeah.
No, because you're appending the HTML, but your response is still in JSON. All you're doing is appending HTML.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we could do that. I think,
You
right?
Keep your response JSON, but append a partial.
Okay, so let's create a partial first. Partial is going to go in the same folder as our views, right?
It would be if you created the HTML in your PHP controller and then sent that back, right?
So you're gonna encode the HTML as JSON and then decode it back into jQuery?
No. I'm not gonna I wouldn't grab the HTML until we've already received our JSON response of everything's true, and then I would just append the HTML that we need. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I think I lost you.
Alright, let's see him build the
Let's pause this video here for a second.